Tip number 1, always be looking every single day, whether it's manually checking your favorite real estate websites or contacting your real estate agent and asking them to set up alerts in their MLS system so you get new listings delivered to you every day. Or you can even do this yourself by going to your favorite real estate websites, and many of them will have the option to save a search and to set alerts, so in case anything new comes out based on what you're looking for, you'll get an email right away. That way you'll be one of the first ones to know about a new listing in the area you're interested in. Number 2, if you're financing, make sure you have all of your pre-approval documents in a row, meaning that you have gone through a lender and gone through the pre-approval process, and you have a pre-qualification letter stating that you are ready to buy a property within your specified budget. And if you're a cash buyer, that doesn't completely get you off the hook. You need to make sure you have your most recent tax returns ready for review, or your most recent 3 months bank statements to prove that you have the cash to actually buy the property you're interested in. Now, this might be a controversial one, but let me tell you something. This method I'm about to tell you won me my last investment property, and if it wasn't for me doing this, I would have lost this deal. And when I bought this property, I was looking in a very competitive market as well. It wasn't as crazy as it is now, but the demand for rental properties was extremely high. They were still at really low prices compared to what the units were renting for, so it was very hard to buy a multifamily unit. So my third tip is make an offer on the house before you ever even see it. I know it sounds crazy, right? But don't worry, guys, you're protected, because just because you make an offer on the property doesn't mean that you're committing to buying it, okay? You're gonna have your inspection period, or what some places call a due diligence period, and during that time frame, you can cancel your contract at any time and for any reason. If you find a better deal, or maybe you've done the inspection on the property and you're not happy with what you found, whatever the reason might be, you can cancel within that inspection period with zero penalty to you, and you don't have to worry about losing your deposit. And within this number 3, I also recommend making a full price offer before you ever even see it, because obviously if you try to lowball in a competitive market, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to lose. So you already know what your budget is because you're either paying cash or you're pre-qualified, back to number 1, so you know what you can afford. And if the house checks all the boxes for you, you shouldn't hesitate to pay full price for it if it's what you're looking for. Now, if you guys are enjoying this video, remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. And remember, if you want to discuss any of this outside of YouTube, whether it be talking about real estate things like this or moving to Florida, I offer consulting calls, and you can find the link for that right down in the description below and on the pinned comment. Number 4, offer as quick of a closing as possible. Now, this is where cash buyers have more of an advantage than financing buyers do, because when you're financing, it just takes longer to close on the property because there's a lot of steps to the transaction that are outside of your control, such as the appraisal process, the underwriting process, and how long it's going to take your lender to go from A to Z and actually close the deal. But when you're paying cash, you're pretty much eliminating all of those steps in between, and the only thing you really need to do is do your own due diligence, your own inspection on the property, and as soon as the title company's ready to close, once they've done their lien searches and their open permit searches and everything checks out, you'll be ready to close. So in cash transactions, you might be able to close in as little as 15 days. If you have a good lender, maybe 30 days if you're financing. Number 5 is very important and can definitely help you win the property in a bidding war if you're competing against several different offers. Offer as is. Don't ask the seller to make any repairs or have any concessions during the sale. And basically the idea here is that you're making it as easy as possible for the seller to close. You're not asking them to do anything before they move out. You're not asking them to make any type of repairs. You can do all that stuff yourself once you actually own the property, because remember, the main goal here is to just close on the property because you're competing against maybe 10 other buyers who want the same house as you do. Number 6 can be very effective if you are local, and I highly recommend doing this if you can, and that is drive the neighborhood at least once every couple of days or maybe once a week and see if there are any for sale by owner signs popping up in the yards that weren't there last time, and approach those sellers directly. And that's going to give you two advantages. One, a lot of sellers don't actually list their properties in the MLS system when they're doing for sale by owner. So a lot of people who are looking in that area might not even realize that property is for sale. And the other reason you want to do this is because once you're talking face to face with the seller, there's a very high probability that you might be able to just make the deal with them directly and bypass a multiple offer situation altogether if you give them a good enough offer right up front and just make the deal right then and there. And I know this one's kind of tough to do with condos because driving through the neighborhood if you're looking to buy a condo isn't really going to help you because you're not going to know which units are for sale, and it's impossible for sellers to put up a for sale by owner sign when you live in a condo that has 200 units. But this one more applies to houses where people traditionally put up yard signs, and a lot of times for sale by owners will put up their own sign in the yard saying for sale by owner. Number 7 is to be mentally prepared to lose out on many deals before actually getting the one that is for you. Because in a competitive market, you can guarantee there's going to be multiple offer situations. You can guarantee that a couple times you might just be too late. And you can guarantee that even if you followed all 6 of the previous steps, that you might still lose out on a couple of offers just because someone else beat you to it. Maybe they even offered above full asking price, which unless you're willing to do that too, you're just not going to be able to compete with people like that. And you need to be okay with that mentally because otherwise the process is going to be extremely frustrating and it's going to end up taking a toll on you. You know, you're doing the best you can, you're putting in as much preparation as you can ahead of time, but ultimately you'll end up with the right property for you if you just stick with it. Number 8 is all about making sure that you're checking yourself and making sure you're not doing something you wouldn't normally do just because it's a high pressure situation. Meaning, don't be desperate and don't just buy any house just because the market's hot and this is all you could get and this is the only property that would accept your offer. If that house doesn't check enough boxes for you and you're just buying it just because, then that's a big red flag that you should probably take a step back, maybe take a few weeks off of looking for a house and just give it a rest, because at that point, man, you're just asking for trouble. I've seen some people buy properties out of desperation, and then sometimes what happens is they end up regretting their decision and may end up wanting to sell just a few months later, which is known as buyer's remorse. Number 9 is to be highly prepared in the sense that you know exactly what type of property you're looking for. So when a new listing does hit the market, you have your checklist of things that that house needs to meet criteria-wise, and within a few minutes you can evaluate whether or not that house is going to be even worth looking at, it's going to be even worth making an offer on, and so on and so forth. And if it doesn't match that criteria, scrap it and keep looking for the next house. And if it matches most of the criteria, then maybe you can consider it if you're willing to make a couple compromises if you realize that those compromises might not be a deal breaker for you. For example, if you're looking for a 4-bedroom, but that 4th bedroom is really only a luxury and you don't really need it, and a 3-bedroom comes on the market that checks all your other boxes, then you might want to highly consider that home even though it's not the perfect house for you, because in a competitive real estate market, that might be the only thing that comes along for months that meets your criteria. So you should definitely have a little bit of wiggle room on what you're willing to compromise on and what you're not. Number 10, know when to walk away from a deal. I highly recommend you do your inspection quickly, get through your due diligence period, and where you still have a few days left over to decide whether or not the house is for you. This will give you some time to look over your inspection report, see if the house has too many repairs or things that you're not willing to deal with. This could be a point when you might be willing to renegotiate with the seller, whether it might be asking for additional repairs or a lower price. But you can almost guarantee if you do that, the market is very competitive and you've been trying very hard to land a house in your area for a while, that you might lose the deal. But that's okay, because if you've already decided that this house might be too much trouble for you, then the smart decision is to walk away from the deal and let somebody else deal with that. Because the last thing you want to do is end up with a house where you bite off more than you can chew, and maybe the house needs 30 grand worth of work and you're not willing to do the work, or you don't want to go through the hassle of it, or maybe you just can't afford it. Now, if you want to know more about the home buying process, check out my next video right over here, which is all about all the steps you need to know to buy a house from the beginning to the end, which will take you from first starting to the closing process. I'll see you guys over there in that video.